When I was 22, future looked bright. Just joking, when I was 22, I found out I was a girl. Yay! I could like Pink, Olivia Rodrigo, and Marxism now. Fun. Back then, I did not know a lot of trans people in my life. There was this one trans mask guy who was friends of some friends, and of course I went to him for advice, but to be honest, I ended up having most of my early transition questions, guidance, and feedback online. Mostly on Reddit, a place where people are definitely sane and well put together. A lovely idea. In one way I think it's cute because I have kind of this diary of my thoughts and concerns when I was coming out, which is fascinating to me in a way. I posted on Ask Transgender 6 years ago saying that I did not know if I was actually experiencing dysphoria or if it was something else. Spoiler alert! It was dysphoria. And I was really confused because I was kind of okay with who I was. I was okay with my body, I was okay with my name. It wasn't like the most exciting thing ever, but it was an honest little life, you know. I would go to concerts, I had friends, I had fun. But you know, I was always a girl's girl. By the time I was finished with college, most of my friends were girls. I connected with girls, I had deep friendship with girls, and I liked doing girl stuff, like hanging out in a basement in the center of the city to watch girls playing shoegaze and drink rum. 2018 was definitely a year for me. Eventually I decided to just be like the other girls, I guess. The reasons why I transitioned are not really what I want to talk about today, but I'm more interested in what happened after. Today, I want to take you on a journey to the darkest corners of transgender internet to try to answer the old age questions that have been plaguing transhood for millennia. Am I a passoid or am I a gigahan? Okay, now for your content warning. In this video, I will be discussing ideas and concepts that have emerged in environments that are crawling with chronically online teenagers. There will be transphobia, self-image issues, and all that entails. Please proceed with caution. But before we move on, I need to cover some groundwork. In this video, I will be discussing the concept of passing. And that's gonna be super easy because I already did that in 2018 for my bachelor's thesis, where I basically wrote 80 pages on why The Danish Girl is a shitty movie. A very cis thing to do. Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, leave a like here if you'd be interested in watching a video about that. So to pass as a gender, to pass as a woman, or as a man, or as an anime character, is when society, whoever that is, looks at you and their brain goes like, that person is showing me characteristics that I correlate with this social group. I will classify them as such and treat them with either respect or misogyny. According to the writer Leticia Lanz, social visibility is one of the most contradictory points in the life of a transgender person, as it necessarily means direct exposure to the gaze of another, with all the implications that can arise from this visual contact. Being seen and being publicly recognized as a person of the opposite gender to that in which they were classified at birth is, at the same time, what the transgender person aspires to most and what they fear most. However, if you ask somebody on the Fortran subreddit what passing is, they're going to say that you are a passoid when you win the genetic lottery. You have the correct jaw angle, a smooth brow bone, lush hairline. You are 1.6 meters tall when you have the vocal range of Ariana Grande. And if you are missing any single one of those factors, you are a gigahan, doomed to be miserable forever and might as well boy mode for the rest of your life. You will never pass. Why bother transitioning at all? Yes, that's where we're going today. Back to me in 2018. I asked some close friends to start calling me she, her in private, and when they did, I got euphoria shivers down my spine. Shit, guess we're doing it, right? So I was trans and I needed to do something about it. I was exploring with names, gender presentation, androgyny, genderfuck, going to parties, wearing dresses and tights. But I only had cis friends. Although they were all the best friends I could have asked for during my entire transition, I was still very unsure. Most of my friends are die-hard feminists. Maybe some of them could have some turfy opinions. Maybe they could see me venturing into femininity as an appropriation of female struggle. Their friendship has always been very dear to me, and I was scared that somebody might have a negative reaction. I wanted more than anything to be welcomed as one of them, just like the other girls. But they were cis, and I was only communicating with other trans people online. This also makes me feel very removed from Latin American travesti culture, which I'm really sorry for. I mean, I'm literally writing this video in English. My country has a very rich transgender history of resistance and cultural subversion, of marginalized people fighting with their bare hands against an oppressive police state and the gender binary itself. They are not trans women, they are travestis, and that is red as f. And I feel very disconnected from that cultural baggage because my upbringing as a trans person happened in a very dumbed down, hygienized, US-centered, cat girl hat pat meme environment. I became a very active poster on a couple of subreddits, most notably transpassing and transtimelines. Do I pass, you guys? What can I do to pass better? Passing, passing, passing. And in almost all of the posts, I was getting very similar answers. What do you mean you are pre-HRT? You pass so well without hormones. Just get your eyebrows done and you're good to go. HRT is going to blow your pre-looks out of the water. And obviously, that rocketed my ego into the stratosphere. I had become what people on Fortran and TTTT despise the most. A pre-HRT passoid. And honestly, this build-up just set me up for disappointment in every single way. Because of course, I was only sharing online my best photos. It's what the internet's for. The same week, I was looking like this, but also looking like this. I was aware of that, but it definitely gave me the impression that I was very lucky, and that with some makeup and voice training, I could pass easily. I won the genetic lottery, and that made me feel safe to walk around the world full-time as a woman, even without hormones. I was fully out, and while my friends were lovely about it, my family it took a while for them. So I did what any girl with mommy issues does. I got a job in another country and I left. And this was still one entire year before I would start hormones. When I moved, I restarted my life from scratch. My new friends did not know my dead name, my coworkers also did not. Nobody there had ever seen me as a man. My name was on my work email and it was an amazing fresh start. And because, I'm a passoid, I never really knew if I was trans or not. Then I changed my legal name, I started hormones, and I started seeing a phonologist for voice training. I had boobs, and my self-esteem was higher than ever. I joined the soccer team just to ruin female sports and play terribly with the lesbians every week, living the dream. There was this girl that known me for 3 entire months, and when she discovered I was trans, she was completely shocked. It was funny. It is fun. I felt completely stealth, which is when somebody passes so often that most people in their lives don't even know they are trans. And don't get me wrong, I am a very loud queer person. I know the importance of being visibly queer, and I want that for me. I want people to know that I'm trans, but I also enjoy having control over who knows that, in which context they know that. I am trans, I am bi, and I will talk about that in a bar for hours. But if I'm waiting for the metro alone at 2 in the morning, maybe it's better if people don't see me as visibly queer. Having that control was super important for me to feel safe. But that was my life. I was using the girls' toilet and surprisingly, no one was getting hurt. I was moving through single-sex spaces, crawling with old ladies, and no one would bat an eye. I finally passed. Until I didn't. It was a lovely sunny day. I was walking somewhere with my best friend, cis girl. She notices that there is this guy with a kid looking at me very weirdly, and she gets very pissed at him. Shouts, tells him to mind his own business. We are Latina, don't mess with us. But I was super shocked because I hadn't even noticed that. Like, he couldn't be looking disgusted at me, right? Why would he? How would he know I was trans? I passed perfectly, even before hormones, right? Right? I am now almost 4 years in HRT. Most of the changes I've had are finished, and I don't think I'm getting anything else. This is what I get. This is my genetic lottery. I'm very happy, of course. I'm a dykish fooch with small boobs, exactly what I dreamed of. This is me at my most passoid. And last night, I was drunk in a bar, made some straight friends in the toilet because I complimented this girl's nails. Peak female experience, exactly what I transitioned for. I was hanging out with these girls, they decide to head to a club and bring along some guys. I don't remember their names, but just picture the most basic straight guy you can think of. It was him. At some point, the guy asked me, "Can I ask you a question? I think it's a bad question, but can I?" And I, drunk, already anticipating what was coming ahead, said, "Sure." I know, I have no self-respect. He asked me, "Are you a man?" And I mean, I couldn't think of a worse way he could have phrased that. And the question is not the point. The point is, what did he see? How did he clock me in 5 minutes, while other people know me for months before I tell them I'm trans? Am I a passoid? Am I a gigahon? Who am I? The answer is very simple. Passing does not exist. It's just not a thing at all. As a concept, not real. Blair White doesn't pass, Caitlyn Jenner doesn't pass, Hunter Schaffer doesn't pass. There are 8 billion people on the planet, which means that when people look at Hunter Schaffer, they see 8 billion possible genders. Statistically, yes, likely one might even be a tech helicopter. The boxes in people's heads where they categorize other people are completely individual and unique to them. Hell, to talk about passing might even be a bit transphobic. What is passing for non-binary people? How does somebody pass as non-binary? When I see an NB somewhere, I might categorize them and read them as such, yes. But there are so many people on the planet who don't even have the vocabulary to do that. Is passing even possible in that case? It's such an impossible standard that even cis people don't pass. And they have been on hormones for much longer than we have. We have crazy transvestigators on the internet these days, but even before then, the amount of cis people rumored to be secretly trans is insane. Let's look at a Twitter thread by Hoochie Doll, and you tell me if you see something in common between these people. Patti LaBelle, Escape, Latasha Scott, Toni Braxton, Janet Jackson, Ciara, all black women. We also had the Lady Gaga story in 2009. Cis people are being victims of violence because they supposedly don't pass as cis. If cis women don't pass as women, then what is a woman? But most importantly, if even cis people are getting clocked, which literally misses the entire supposed point of the thing, why are we martyrizing ourselves because of it? Why am I even talking about this? Well, because I am still relatively active on Reddit. And a few weeks ago, a 19-year-old girl DM'd me saying that I was her transition goal, which was super sweet. She asked me for some advice about difficult life situations, telling me she was scared of transitioning socially. I decided to stalk her profile and go through her posting history. She was super pretty, beautiful hair. Let's call her Debbie. A normal trans girl, like so many that I see on the streets and queer events every day. The girl was extremely insecure about everything. She's been on hormones for years, but still completely presents as a man. I understand she should take her time, but she's been transitioning for a while, and still is losing precious and beautiful experiences that she could have already had, in an age where so many people wish they had started. And her posting history showed some preoccupations that, in my opinion, should not be the main focus for a young person who's just trying to live a happy life. She was asking strangers online if they thought that trans people who don't pass should not transition at all, to help trans optics. She said she did not feel comfortable calling herself a trans girl, as if she had to earn something. And she asked for advice on how to beat the fear of being physically attacked if she attempted to transition socially. Debbie, if you're watching, 1. Who gives a fuck about trans optics? Really? Just go live your life. 2. Being trans is not a prize you get, not a great exclusive honor to be a trans woman. There are a lot of shitty trans people and they are still trans. That's not the point at all. And 3. Debbie lives in the United Kingdom. Yes, Turf Island is hell on earth and the Brianna Gay case is absolutely horrifying, but still, it is the United Kingdom, one of the safest countries on the planet. Trans people are living happy and long lives in so many countries that are much less safe, in places where it's fully legal to be trans. Hell, I lived as a woman for years in Brazil, the country with the highest rate of transgender people being murdered in the entire planet, before I could even start hormones. And her fear of getting hate crimed in bloody Yorkshire Wimbledon Oxford Town is so high that she's essentially giving up on living her youth as a girl. Then I saw that she was very active in a specific subreddit, Fortran. And yes, I went down the Fortran pipeline. We all do sometime, and if you know what Fortran is, yes, this is a containment breach. Go ahead, make your jokes. You are publicly posting on the internet, people find you on Google. You need to deal with it. And if you don't know what 4chan is, I'm happy for you. Well done. I'm very sorry for what I'm about to do. So there is this deep dark corner of the internet called 4chan. The chans and image boards have existed since the 90s. Some on the surface, most of them on onion networks. But all of them trying to provide discussions in the most anonymous way possible. You don't register, you don't create a user, they don't track you. You just post. And while there are some normal and decent chans, they have become infamous for harvesting just the best kind of folk there is in the World Wide Web. I will not say out loud which kind of folk because I would say some very bad words that YouTube doesn't like, mostly pertaining to the German Chancellor of 1933. But just imagine the worst person you ever met on the internet, the biggest edgelord. That's where they meet and discuss with their friends about nice topics. And the culture that was created around 4chan is, more often than not, firmly rooted in misogyny, racism, and transphobia. There are lots of people who grew up on the internet frequenting these image boards, completely adopting the ideas and vocabulary of these groups. And of course, some of these edgy teenagers would grow up to understand that they were actually a little bit queer themselves. And they become queer people who have to deal with internal misogyny, transphobia, and even self-hatred. One of the pages in 4chan dedicated to LGBT users, /LGBT, is lovingly nicknamed /TTTT, which stands for trans, and trans. Because, funnily enough, the vast majority of the LGBT 4chan users identify as transgender. And I mean, that's just one corner of the internet that I don't visit. I have a good idea of what it is they're talking about there, but it's kind of a let's turn a blind eye to them. And these people are averse to social connection. They don't like normies like me. They usually like to stay in their bubbles, talking to people who understand their cultural references, their vocabulary, and their struggles. And that's super fair. I respect that. But as an educational experience, let's just quickly go into 4chan's LGBT board and look at the first post, shall we? Okay, so I actually can't read the first one on YouTube, I'll just read the second one. So there's this TikTok video, and although I never seen the word rotmaxing before, I'm just going to assume is living in filth. Then the post goes, sissies, who are cis people, are appropriating NEET, unemployed, shut in culture. It's over. And then the first comment says, no, who are men, got it from incels, who are men. No cultural appropriation going on here. Nice, healthy, civilized, polite conversations. Incel culture, red pill culture influences a lot on how these people view and talk about transgenderism. This has been brought up by ContraPoints before in one of her videos. I don't really remember. Maybe it was cringe, or maybe incels. I think it was incels. Sorry mommy, you are releasing videos once a year and they are all longer than Dune 2. I mix them up sometimes. But for socially awkward people, young adults who grew up on image boards, there is really an incel to trans pipeline. And yes, it is a bit cringe, mostly because of how far it is from historic LGBT street culture and how close it is to extremely misogynistic tropes. These are trans people whose philosophy is much more aligned with Andrew Tate than Martha P. Johnson. But then, instead of being red pill, blue pilled Chads and Stacys, trans people are called Truners. Passing trans women are passoids, whom we hate. Huns are non-passing trans women, because of the phrase, looking great hun, and trans men are called pooners because, well, honestly, I have absolutely no clue. And I think I like not knowing. I bet they are called that for a terrible reason though. Don't Google it. Their lingo is usually just putting two words together and creating something that sounds scientific, like chaser bro and hope-pilled. It's exactly like German. And then we have finally the subreddit 4chan, which is the more accessible, family-friendly, easily found version of the LGBT or TTTT image board. It's a place on Reddit where trans people with views who are aligned to those of 4chan meet and discuss passing, their hatred of cis people, how to react to turfs, how to deal with losing hope that they will ever be accepted. And it's just a feeling from my side, there's actually nothing concrete to back this up, but I have the impression that there is actually more content here that's directly to trans men compared to 4chan, which is completely trans femme dominated. And yes, this is the subreddit that Debbie, the 19-year-old trans girl who messaged me, was very, very active on. And don't get me wrong, most of the people visiting 4chan are at least a little bit aware that this is all a tad bit ridiculous, that they can be overly dramatic. They are only calling each other slurs ironically. They know they are all just average people, worthy of love, and they look okay. You get very self-aware posts like this ones frequently. But then, the comment section. It is filled with people saying, "Yeah, I know deep down everyone here is a regular person, except for me. I'm a freak." This post also goes over the idea that there are people who are male-brained and female-brained, like binary brains. A male-brained person would be into monster trucks, video games, and porn, while a female-brained person would be into Taylor Swift, gossip, and makeup. I don't know. And I believe this is linked to a paper published in 2008 by Dick Swab called A Sex Difference in the Hypothalamic Onset Nucleus, Relationship to Gender Identity, in which he looked at certain structures in the brains of cis and trans people. This is a study that suggests that as a trans woman, my brain would have structures that are closer to the ones you find in cis women than in cis men. And that supposedly proves that I am a female, so trapped in the wrong body. I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube that delve into this subject much better than I ever could. But honestly, this sounds a bit too fashy for my taste. A bit eugenic pilled, if I should say so. I think it's much easier to see that most trans women, due to having, been raised as boys from a young age, will bring along interests that were presented to them. Yes, trans women, mostly lesbian and bisexual trans women, are all software developers who like anime and play Dark Souls. But do you know who else loves cartoons and video games? Every single queer cis teenage girl I ever met. I have this one friend, she's a cis woman and she would love to be more into video games. But for her it's very difficult to get into some types of games. I mean, I have been playing them ever since I was a toddler, so I can easily recognize what a game designer wants me to do. And I don't know which buttons are supposed to be pressed for certain kinds of actions, from decades of conditioning. It's almost like an entirely different language that I can speak, but this friend of mine can't, because her parents never gave her video games, because it was a thing for boys. And that makes it so that there is really an entry barrier for her to play most games. But she's getting super into Stardew Valley these days, and I'm very proud about that. But let's get back to Debbie. Of course, I was very concerned about her. She was a teenager spending hours and hours with people that are obsessed with whether their faces passed, if their bodies passed, even if their brains passed. And at the same time, they would keep comparing themselves to these impossibly gorgeous transgender people, completely sure that they would never pass and deciding that it would be better not to even bother transitioning. To them, it's better to be a boy moder than a gigahon. And I will repeat here what I said to Debbie a few weeks ago. And, of course, I am using Debbie as a proxy to every single person who is a part of these communities and who is looking for help and kindness and connection. I'm really glad you found a community you can open up to and find belonging in, but hear me, this is not healthy. Don't throw away your youth, precious years of discovery where you could be making friends and learning things about yourself because of something as abstract and dumb as passing. Because if you want to wait until you pass to live your life, to live the life you always wanted, you never will. Because nobody ever passes. People they just are, people they exist. They have experiences of gender, living and transitioning that are so individual that putting Buck Angel and Elliot Page into the same box doesn't even make sense. Everyone understands themselves differently and they will present what gender is uniquely to them. And still, I know that passing feels real for so many people because it is the one thing that they are aspiring to. I know that it feels like I'm just another moderately pretty white girl telling you this, but honestly, we are playing a game we can't win. It's capitalism setting impossible standards all over again. And good news, this is super female-brained, very teenage girl on Tumblr 2012 build. I understand why we are obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it too. We are told to be obsessed with it and to aim it above anything else. Being trans is scary and we say it's for safety, but deep down we know it's also a little bit about being pretty. To prove that we succeeded in being who we set out to be. It is a human desire, but come on. Not everybody can be a supermodel. But should we even try to? There are beautiful people in the world, yes, but there are so many more important things that we can do and live and experience that should not and are not conditioned to how good looking we are. We can't keep competing with each other in this way, comparing to one another. Huns and passoids, it will drive everybody insane. What I have to say is definitely not what you want to hear. And you have heard it a million times, and you will make fun of me for saying it. But a friend who's much wiser than me asked me, do you want to say what you want to say, or what they want to hear? So I'll say it, even if it's just for Debbie. If you feel you're stuck inside one of these online communities, and you feel like you only have friends inside of a Discord group chat, I have only one thing to ask. Go outside, meet people, get drunk, join a queer rugby team and ruin female sports forever. Stream Dorian Lecture on Spotify, learn how to cook, volunteer. Look for local queer groups that are into the same things as you are. Move to a city that's a little bit more fruity, you know? Be young. I know this is a bit of an NPC thing to say, but sometimes NPCs can help you get where you need to go. It sounds difficult, and I know different areas of the world have unique issues. But if you watch me this far, I know you are willing to put in the effort. Learning about queer culture outside with real people facing real-world issues was one of the best gifts I ever gave myself. And I found so many incredible people and experiences in the meanwhile. And I swear, if you ever manage to find one close non-binary friend, you will look at passing in an entirely different light. It can sound scary, but sometimes we need to take some risks to find connection. And I know what you will tell me. Oh, I went to the local LGBT group in my school and it was filled with cringe teenagers who had blue hair and they were also Tyrians and their pronouns were vamp/ire. I can't stand those people. And to that I say, so what? Yes, teenagers are cringe sometimes. That's what they do. It's their job description. But I'm cringe too. And I don't understand what they are doing most of the time, but let them be. Who cares if there are teens on TikTok who are ruining trans optics? TERFs are gonna hate us either way. Find your group, look for people your age. They are out there. We are always talking about how much we lost for not having transitioned when we were younger. But guess what? You are young today. Don't waste it. Living your best life now is so much more important than what people think about your looks. And then, going through all of this made me stop at a very simple question. What did I really want when I started transitioning? What were my goals? And the answer is that I wanted to belong. I never wanted to pass. I never needed to pass. My main transition goal, what I really wanted, was for my female friends, who I love very, very dearly, to look at me and see one of their own, part of the group, with my own individualities of course, but a lot of shared experiences, fears and hopes. And for that, I am very happy to say that I passed. I passed with flying colors.